if on the first lessons what we were focused was mostly what is heat and what is the temperature and what is the main difference between heat and temperature, which by the way, the main difference is that heat is something that is the sum of the energy that all the particles in the matter have, versus the temperature is uh, the average energy of the particles in the matter. So you can have two different objects, like let's say two beakers that have different volumes, one that is 50 milliliters and the other one that is 500 milliliters, that have the same temperature, but the heat in the 500 milliliters beaker is higher because you have more particles on it than the heat that is in 50 milliliters of water. So another way that they differ is that heat is measured as energy and it is measured on joules, while the temperature is measured either in degrees Celsius or kelvins, sometimes even in Fahrenheit. Um, Today, what we will do is we will talk about the heat transfer. So now we have that heat, and now we are looking as to how the heat is transferred from one place to the other, from one object to the others. And the ways that heat is transferred are three. It's conduction, convection, and radiation. Let's talk about all three ways in which the heat is transferred. So when we are having conduction, let's see, let's when we are talking about conduction, what do we have to keep in mind is that it is happening between two objects that are in contact between each other. So you have two objects that possess different heats, and then one, let's say object A, and we have object A and object B, and object A, let's say that is hotter than object B. When you put them in contact with each other, what is happening? The heat that object A is having, it is transferred through contact with object B into object B. So we talked about that the heat is as a result of the particles in the matter moving and vibrating, and the more moving and vibration they have, the higher the heat that the object uh, possess is. So therefore, those particles that are on object A that supposedly is hotter than object B has a higher heat than object B. It is as soon as they are in contact, the particles of object A moving faster than the particles of object B will transmit that kinetic energy into the particles of object B, and then on this way until that is known as the thermal equilibrium is reached, meaning that all the particles are moving at the same or vibrating at the same scale uh, is reached, then uh, this motion of the heat moving from the hotter to the colder is stopping. So they are becoming one. They are the motion of the particles on object A and the motion of the particles on object B are moving at the same rate. So uh, the very first thing that we have to keep in mind though is that the heat is moving from hot toward cold. So if object A is hotter than object B, cold, in comparison to object B, then the kinetic energy, the vibration that particles on object A has will be transmitted to through contact with object B. Two particles that object B has until they are reaching that is known as the thermal equilibrium. So always the heat is moving from object A to object to the hot object, from the hot to the cold. And the way that this motion of the heat is happening, the first one is conduction, which is happening when they are in contact with each other. The second way is convection. So what is happening during convection is that the two objects are not in contact with each other, but a flow of particles is happening. A circle of particles from hot to cold is happening. So in the convection, what is happening? Heat is transferred through air current. You have noticed this even as a breeze if you are in front of the ocean. The cold of the ocean, the, the breeze from the ocean is coming into the land, and you feel even in hot days, if you are on the seashore of the ocean, you will feel the breeze that the ocean have. If you have been in Vancouver, you probably have felt that even in the hottest days of the summer that we have here. During convections, what is happening is that the particles of the hot area, so let's say land, we will see that even a bit later, but the particles that are in the hot area are becoming less dense. As they are becoming less dense, they are rising up, and on this way, the cold particles of the air are taking, quote unquote, are taking the place of the that the hot air had, and then they are bringing the breeze into it. So the the hot particles are raising up, and then the place that they had is filled by cold air or cold particles, and on this way the circulation of the air is happening as the hot air is replaced by cold one, and so on and so forth. This is how the convection is happening. So convection is happening. So if we draw a schematic uh, scene of it, then we will see that particles that are hot are are going apart from each other, becoming less dense. So you have less particles per unit of volume, and then they are raising up. But on the same time, what is happening, those uh, cold particles that are here are coming into the place where the hot particles now hot particles were, and then on this way what is happening, a circulation of the air is happening from hot to cold, and then you feel as the cold air is coming into you. This is what it means to have that breeze of the air, of the cold air. Okay. And the third way that we will study that the heat is transferred, is moving, is through radiation. So radiation is when the heat is transferred through electromagnetic waves. The best example of it is when we see um, uh, sun, the heat coming from the sun. So, or the heat that is coming from a fire that you are wood burning stove, okay, a fireplace. Uh, what do you notice is that the if you put your hand close to the fire, then you will notice that your palms are hotter while your back of your hand is not that hot. Because what is happening during that time is that the electromagnetic waves that are possess energy are collided with your palms, and then they are absorbed by your palms and they are turned into heat. Uh, Now, how electromagnetic waves are formed and as a result of the heat and fire, it's not the subject of this course. Probably if you take other courses, science courses later on, then you will see how is that formed and what is the energy that they possess. But what do you need to know for this purposes of science 14 is that radiation is a way of transferring heat through electromagnetic radiation. So just so that you are kind of aware, the electromagnetic radiation is formed as a vibrating electrons, which are tiny particles within each matter, in each atom, and then they possess energy, and as soon as um, they are in collision with an object, then they give all the energy that they possess into that object. So this is what is happening when we have the radiation. So to summarize the heat transfer, the heat is transferred from hot to cold. This is the principle. Okay, so this is the main thing that you need to know. You cannot have a heat transfer from cold to hot. It's always from hot to cold. Now, the ways that the heat is transferred, that heat is transfer is R3. One is conduction, which is happening when the two objects are in contact with each other. In contact with each other. So the kinetic energy that the hot object has is transmitted into the kinetic energy of the cold object has. The second one is convection. So what do we have during convection? Convection is the heat is transferred through air. Hot particles of the air are becoming more active. They are moving faster, therefore they are becoming less denser, which means that they are apart from each other. Density is a quantity that it's telling us how much mass do we have per unit of volume. So hot air is raising up, becoming less denser, and then the place of the hot air is taken by the place of hot air is taken by cold air. So then this circle is formed. The hot air is going up, cold air is coming the into the place where the hot air was. The third way is radiation, which is happening through electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic waves are formed as a result of the vibration or accelerating electrons, and they possess energy. They have energy. So then, as soon as those electromagnetic waves are in contact with an object, they give all the energy that they have into the object. Those are the three ways in which heat is transferred.